Can a 30-watt amplifier power a 100-watt loudspeaker? This question comes from Salman in Sacramento, California. If I have a 30-watt amplifier, can I use speakers that take 5 to 100 watts? And you can see the question here because the numbers aren't lining up. How does a 30-watt amplifier power a 100-watt capable loudspeaker? It's a really good question. And while from an engineering standpoint, I look at it and go, okay, it seems kind of obvious. It isn't to most people. And part of the reason I even do these videos for you is to try and explain how this works and to get some kind of clarity for subjects that can be kind of confusing, at times overwhelming. And the quick answer to Salman's question is sure, not a problem. You probably don't want to go the other way, and we'll talk about that in a second. But yes, a speaker usually rates how much it is capable of taking before it either blows the internal fuse or if you push it too hard, it can fry the speaker, right? So what they're saying here is that this speaker is capable of 100 watts, and you can use up to 100 watts and feel pretty safe about it. In general, speakers like that that's a fairly low wattage acceptable speaker. It's probably going to be fairly efficient, and that's where we want to go. So again, quick answer, you can always put fewer watts into a speaker that are capable of having higher watts and be safe and be okay. The greater question that we need to be asking, and here's where we need to focus ourselves when we're looking at specs and trying to figure all this stuff out. This is important, but what's really important is the sensitivity or the efficiency of the loudspeaker, and that is usually measured in terms of a watt entered and a dB that is output. So you probably have seen these where it says 1 meter, 1 watt, 90 dB, right? Have you seen those? Sometimes it's 1 M/W, and it's kind of cryptic. But what it means is if you put 1 watt into a loudspeaker at a specific frequency, and this is usually around 1 kilohertz, okay? But it can be, you can have a graph that'll show it. But let's just pick a frequency, let's say 1 kilohertz, and if I put in 1 watt, I'm going to get 90 dB of sound out of that speaker. And that tells me the efficiency of the speaker. Now what's interesting is 1 watt makes a lot of noise. 90 dB is not nothing. It's surprising how loud speakers play for a given amount of watts and very low watts. So here's a range that you can remember how this works. For a given input, which is always specified as 1 watt, and we're going to stand away 1 meter, anything below 90, 87, 88, anything below, you're starting to get into fairly low sensitivity. When you get down to 84 or 85, that's real low sensitivity. There, you're going to need a lot more watts to get it up to a good listening level of 95, 98, maybe even 100 dB. You're going to need a lot of watts. And if you have a 90 dB or higher, which is how much sound comes out for 1 watt in, then that's a fairly efficient loudspeaker, and you don't need a whole lot of watts to make it play loud. So that's really the determining factor that we want to pay attention to, is the sensitivity of the speakers. And then when we match an amplifier, this little 30-watt amplifier, I mean, hey, there are SET, single-ended triode amplifiers. You know, they have these one big tube on this thing that only put out like 10 watts. And on a properly efficient or sensitive loudspeaker, they can fill a room with sound without a problem. But put that on an 85 dB sensitive loudspeaker and it's barely going to squeak, and you'll be clipping the amplifier before you know it. So when we're matching up That's what we want to look at. So if you have a 90 dB, 91, 92 sensitivity loudspeaker, 30 watts is not bad. It doesn't give you a lot of headroom, and headroom's something we've talked about in the past, and we will, I promise you, revisit again the ability to not get so close to, you know, the extremes of the amplifier where it starts to squeal. Oh, squeal's a bad term. It starts to get a little bit strangled sounding. So, you know, that's why big amps are really good. So a 200 watt amplifier on a sensitive speaker, it's just loafing. And then when you hit a peak, it's just effortless. And we'll talk more about that. But great question. So yes, it can. The sensitivity of the loudspeaker is what you want to pay attention to. All right. Thanks. Appreciate the question. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.